The sky burned orange and red as explosions lit up the horizon. Ho pressed his back against a broken wall and tried to catch his breath. His hands were shaking. His uniform was torn and covered in dirt and blood that was not his own. He had been a combat medic for 3 years now. 3 years of war against the hollow swarm. 3 years of watching friends die. 3 years of trying to save lives in places where death was everywhere. Today was supposed to be a simple mission. His unit was part of a joint operation with the forces. Together, humans were pushing back the swarm on Planet 7, but nothing in war was ever simple. The ambush came from nowhere. The swarm had been hiding underground, waiting. When they attacked, Ho's unit scattered like leaves in a storm. He ran. Everyone ran. There was no shame in it. Against that many enemies, standing and fighting meant dying. Now he was alone. The twin moons of 7 were rising. The temperature was dropping fast. Ho knew he needed to find shelter before the frost came. On this planet, the nights could kill you just as easily as any enemy. He moved slowly through the ruins of what had once been an outpost. The buildings were made of a dark metal that they loved to use. Everything they built looked strong and cold, just like them. Ho had worked with soldiers before. They were tall, much taller than humans. Their skin was silver gray, smooth like polished stone. Their eyes were pale colors, violet, blue, sometimes gold. They were proud warriors who valued strength above all things. They also did not like humans very much. They thought humans were weak, too soft, too emotional. They called human medicine soft healing and refused to let human medics touch them. To accept help from a human was seen as shameful among their kind. Ho did not care what they thought. He was a medic. His job was to save lives. He did not ask permission first. A sound made him stop. It was quiet, almost lost in the wind. But Ho had learned to listen for such sounds. It was the sound of someone trying not to make noise, the sound of someone in pain. He followed it carefully, keeping low, his medical bag pressed against his side. His hand rested on the small pistol at his hip. He was a medic, not a fighter, but war had taught him to always be ready. Behind a collapsed wall, he found her. She was a female warrior, tall even while lying on the ground. Her armor was cracked and broken in many places. Black blood, the color of blood, was pooling beneath her body. Her silver skin was pale, too pale, and her breathing was shallow. Her violet eyes opened when she heard him approach. They were filled with pain, but also with something else: pride, defiance. "Stay away, human," she hissed. Her voice was weak but sharp. "I do not need your help." Ho ignored her. He knelt down beside her and opened his medical bag. "You are dying," he said simply. "Your armor is broken. You have lost too much blood. If I do not help you, you will be dead before morning. Then I will die with honor. Honor will not keep you warm tonight." She tried to push him away, but her arm had no strength. Ho gently moved her hand aside and began to examine her wounds. It was bad, very bad. She had been hit multiple times. Her armor had saved her life, but only barely. The wounds on her side were deep. One of her legs was broken. She had been crawling, he realized. Crawling through the dirt, trying to get somewhere safe. "I told you to leave," she said again, but her voice was weaker now. "And I told you that you are dying. We can argue about honor later." Ho worked quickly. He cleaned the wounds as best he could with the supplies he had. The biology was different from human biology, but not so different that he could not help. He had studied. He had prepared for moments like this. She hissed in pain as he stitched her wounds closed. Did not use stitches. They considered it primitive. They used special healing gels and advanced technology. But Ho did not have those things. He had thread and needle and steady hands. "This is barbaric," she growled through clenched teeth. "This is what I have. It will work." "How do you know?" "Because I am good at what I do." She made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a cry of pain. It was hard to tell with. The temperature continued to drop. Ho could see his breath now, small clouds of white in the cold air. He worked faster, knowing that time was running out. When he finished with her wounds, he faced another problem. The frost was coming, and she was too weak to move. Her armor was broken and could not keep her warm. If she stayed like this, she would freeze to death before her wounds could heal. Ho made a decision. He took off his outer jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. Then he sat down beside her, pressing his body against hers to share his warmth. She stiffened at his touch. "What are you doing?" "Keeping you alive." This is not proper." "I do not care what is proper. I care about you not dying." She was silent for a long moment. Ho could feel her body shaking, whether from cold or from pain, he did not know. He wrapped his arms around her and held her close, feeling the strange smoothness of her silver skin against his hands. "You are a strange human," she said quietly. "I have been told that before." The night grew colder. Ho stayed awake, watching for enemies, watching her breathing to make sure it did not stop. He shared his water with her when she woke. He gave her the last of his ration bars even though his own stomach was empty. She did not thank him, did not think it was not their way. But sometime during the long night her hand found his. Her fingers, longer than human fingers and cool to the touch, wrapped around his palm. She did not say anything. She did not need to. When the sun finally rose, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Ho felt a relief so strong it almost made him cry. They had survived the night. She was still weak, but her color was better. The bleeding had stopped. She would live. "Rescue will come soon," he said. "They always search for survivors after an ambush." She nodded slowly. Her violet eyes studied his face in a way that made him feel like she was memorizing every detail. "Human," she said, "what is your name?" He looked at her surprised, rarely asked for names. Names were personal, intimate things among their people. "Ho," he said, "my name is Ho." She repeated it softly, as if tasting the words, "Ho." Then she said nothing more. An hour later, the rescue ships arrived. Human medics rushed toward Ho while soldiers moved to collect their fallen. In the chaos of the rescue, Ho lost sight of the silver-skinned warrior. When everything was calm again, he looked for her, but she was gone. No goodbye, no thank you, nothing. Just an empty space where she had been lying. Ho told himself it did not matter. He had saved her life. That was enough. That was his job. But as the rescue ship carried him away from that broken planet, he could not stop thinking about her violet eyes, about the way she had held his hand in the darkness, about the way she had spoken his name. He did not know it then, but she was thinking about him too. And she would never stop. 2 years passed like water through open fingers. The war against the Hollow Swarm did not end. It grew worse. More planets fell. More soldiers died. The stars themselves seemed to be bleeding. Ho had changed in those 2 years. He was harder now, quieter. The young medic who had once smiled easily now rarely smiled at all. He had seen too much, saved too many, lost too many. But he kept working, every day, every battle. He ran toward the screaming while others ran away. He pressed his hands against wounds and whispered promises he was not sure he could keep. "You will be okay. Hold on. Stay with me." Sometimes they stayed. Sometimes they did not. His name began to spread through the ranks. Ho, the medic who never gave up. The one who would walk into fire to pull out a wounded soldier. Human officers recommended him for medals. He received 3 and cared about none of them. What surprised everyone was the proud silver warriors who had always looked down on human medicine began to whisper his name too. At first, it was with scorn. They spoke of the human who had dared to touch one of their elite warriors, who had used primitive methods on a daughter of the Third Fang. It was an insult, a disgrace. But the whispers changed over time. More stories emerged. stories of Ho saving soldiers during joint operations. He did not ask permission. He did not wait for approval. When he saw someone dying, he acted. Human or it did not matter to him. Some hated him for it. How dare this soft human lay his hands on their warriors? But others began to see something different. They saw a man who ran toward death instead of away from it. They saw courage that had nothing to do with weapons or strength. They called him by a new name among themselves, the stubborn one. It was not quite respect, but it was not scorn either. Ho did not know about any of this. He was too busy trying to survive. Far across the galaxy, another warrior was also surviving, but her survival had a different meaning now. Vila of the Third Fang had returned from Seven as a hero. She had been wounded in battle against the swarm and had fought her way back alone. Her commanders praised her strength. Her family celebrated her honor. No one knew about the human. Vila did not tell them. She did not speak of the night she had spent in a stranger's arms, kept warm by his body while his strange medicine worked inside her wounds. She did not mention the gentle hands that had stitched her flesh back together or the kind eyes that had watched over her until dawn. It was her secret, her shame, her treasure. In the weeks after her return, Vila found herself thinking about him often. The human medic with the steady hands and the stubborn voice. Ho! She whispered the name sometimes when she was alone, feeling how strange and beautiful it sounded. She did not understand what she was feeling. Warriors did not feel such things. They did not think about soft humans with warm skin and foolish bravery. They did not wonder what such a human was doing right now, whether he was safe, whether he was alive. But Vila wondered every day. One night, alone in her quarters, she made a decision. She removed her chest armor, the plate that covered her heart. It was from the battle on Seven. Her commanders had offered to replace it with new armor, fresh and perfect. She had refused. This armor has proven itself, she had said. I will keep it. They thought she meant the armor had saved her life in battle. They were wrong. Vila took a small cutting tool and began to work on the inside of the plate. The metal was hard, but tools were harder. Slowly, carefully, she carved letters into the surface. Human letters, a human name. Kangtiaiho. It took her hours. When she finished, she held the armor up to the light. The name was hidden on the inside, where no one would ever see it, where it would rest against her heart every time she wore it. Among there was an old tradition, the etching of the eternal. When a warrior owed their life to another, they would carve that name into their armor. It was a sacred promise, a bond deeper than words. The etched name meant, I will protect this, I will fight for this. If I die, I will die shielding this name. It was a right reserved for bondmates, for family, for those who had touched the warrior's soul. Vila put her armor back on and felt the carved letters pressing against her chest. The human did not know. He would probably never know, but she knew. And that was enough. The war continued. Vila rose through the ranks of the military. Her skills in battle were unmatched. She fought with a ferocity that frightened even her allies. She took wounds that would kill lesser warriors and kept fighting. Her armor was damaged many times. Each time she repaired it herself. Each time she refused to replace it. Commander Vila, her subordinates would say, your armor is falling apart. Let us give you new protection. No. But Commander. I said no. They did not understand. They could not understand. Years of battle left scars on her armor, burns from plasma fire, cuts from enemy blades, dents from explosions that should have killed her. The chest plate in particular was covered in marks. It looked like a map of pain. But the inside remained untouched. The name remained perfect. Every time Vila went into battle, she thought of him, the stubborn one. She had learned his new nickname from the rumors that spread between human and forces. She had heard stories of his heroics, of his impossible saves, of his refusal to let anyone die on his watch. Pride filled her chest when she heard such stories, and something else, something she still could not name. She fought harder because of him, not to repay a debt, though that was part of it, but because she wanted to be worthy, worthy of the name she carried, worthy of the man who had given her life. Sometimes at night, when the ship was quiet and the stars were cold, Vila would touch the scars on her armor and remember the smell of blood and dirt, the cold wind of seven, the warmth of human arms holding her through the darkness. She had never felt safe in her entire life. Warriors were not supposed to feel safe. Safety was weakness. But in that one night, wrapped in a stranger's embrace, she had felt something she had no word for. She wanted to feel it again. But the war kept them apart. Humans fought on one front, on another. Their paths did not cross. Vila watched for his name in every report, every casualty list, every mission briefing. She learned that he was alive. She learned that he was still fighting. That was enough. It had to be enough. 2 years of war, 2 years of blood and fire and endless death. Ho forgot many things during those years. He forgot the faces of soldiers he could not save. He forgot the names of planets where he had almost died. He forgot what peace felt like. But he never quite forgot the silver-skinned warrior with the violet eyes. Sometimes in the quiet moments between battles he would think about her. He would wonder if she had lived, if her wounds had healed properly, if she had gone on to fight more battles. He hoped she was alive. He hoped she was well. He did not know that she carried his name against her heart. He did not know that she would have died 100 times to keep that name safe. But he would learn. And when he did, everything would change. Station was supposed to be safe. That was what the commanders had promised. A medical outpost far behind the front lines. A place where wounded soldiers could heal without fear of attack. The commanders were wrong. The hollow swarm had been growing smarter, learning. They no longer attacked only military targets. They had started hitting supply lines, communication centers, and medical stations. Anything that could hurt the alliance of humans and Station was their target. Ho was there when the attack began. He had been transferred to the station just 3 days before, assigned to help with the growing number of wounded soldiers. For 3 days, he had done what he always did: cleaned wounds, changed bandages, held hands of the dying. Then the sky turned dark with swarm ships. The attack came fast and brutal. Station had some defenses, but not enough, not nearly enough. Within minutes, the station was burning. Explosions shook the ground. Screams filled the air. Ho did not run. He grabbed his medical bag and ran toward the screaming. He found 2 wounded soldiers in a collapsed building. One was human, a young woman with a broken arm and burns on her face. The other was a male warrior with a piece of metal stuck in his chest. Both were dying. Ho pulled them into a corner, away from the worst of the fighting. He worked on them with hands that did not shake, even though his heart was pounding like a drum in his chest. The human woman would live. The male was more complicated, but Ho had learned much about their biology over the years. "Stay with me," he said to them. "Help will come." He did not know if that was true. The station was falling. He could hear the sounds of battle getting closer. The swarm was coming for them. But Ho was a medic. He did not leave his patients, ever. He took out his pistol and pointed it at the door. If the swarm came through, he would fight. He would probably die, but he would fight. The door exploded inward. Ho fired twice before he realized that the figures coming through were not swarm. They were silver-skinned warriors in black armor, moving with deadly grace. And at their head was a tall female with violet eyes. Vila saw him at the same moment he saw her. For a single heartbeat, the battle seemed to stop. The noise faded. The fire dimmed. There was only him crouching over his patients with a smoking pistol in his hand, blood on his face, determination in his eyes. "You," she said. She knew him instantly, even after 2 years. Even covered in dirt and blood, she would have known him anywhere. Ho did not recognize her at first. His mind was still in battle mode. All he saw was a commander staring at him with an expression he could not read. "We need extraction," he said, his voice rough. "These two need immediate medical care." Vila moved toward him. Her soldiers spread out, securing the area, cutting down swarm creatures that tried to approach. But she did not fight. She walked straight to him and looked down at his patients. Then she looked at him. "You are wounded," she said. Ho blinked. He had not noticed. Looking down, he saw that his side was bleeding. He had been hit by something during the initial attack. He had not even felt it. "It is nothing," he said. "We need to move them." "Yes, we do." To the shock of her soldiers, Vila bent down and lifted the human woman in her arms. She nodded for Ho to get the mail. "Commander," one of her soldiers said, "let us carry them, you should not." "I will carry them," Vila said. Her voice allowed no argument. They moved through the burning station, Vila's squad clearing a path through the swarm. Ho struggled to keep up. The mail was heavy, and his own wound was starting to hurt now. Blood soaked through his uniform. "Faster," Vila called back to him. "I am going as fast as I can." She slowed her pace, just a little, just enough for him to keep up. Her soldiers noticed and exchanged glances, but no one said anything. They reached the landing zone where an extraction ship was waiting. Medics rushed forward to take the wounded. Ho handed over his patient and finally let himself sag against a wall. The world was spinning now. He had lost more blood than he thought. Hands caught him before he could fall. Strong hands, cool skin. "You need medical attention," Vila said. She was holding him up, her face close to his. "I am fine." "You are lying." She lifted him like he weighed nothing and carried him onto the ship herself. The human medics stared as a commander personally laid a wounded human onto a medical bed. "Treat him," Vila ordered, "now." They rushed to obey. Something in her voice made it clear that refusing was not an option. As the medics worked on him, Ho felt consciousness slipping away. But before darkness took him, he saw Vila standing by the door, watching, waiting. He had so many questions, but sleep took him before he could ask any of them. When he woke, he was in a clean medical bay. White walls, soft lights, the gentle hum of machines monitoring his vital signs. And Vila sitting in a chair by his bed. She looked different from the warrior he had seen in battle, smaller somehow, quieter. Her armor was and burned, covered in marks that spoke of countless fights, but her eyes were the same, violet like deep space, looking at him with an intensity that made his chest feel tight. "How long have I been asleep?" he asked. 6 hours. "And you have been here?" 6 hours. Ho tried to sit up. Pain shot through his side and he fell back with a groan. "Do not move," Vila said. "Your wound was serious. You almost died." "I have almost died many times." "That does not make me feel better." She said it without thinking. Then her eyes widened slightly, as if she had surprised herself. Silence filled the room. Ho studied her face, trying to understand what was happening. Why was she here? Why had she carried him herself? Why had she stayed for 6 hours? "You were on 7, he said slowly, 2 years ago." Vila nodded. "I saved your life." Another nod. "I thought you had forgotten." "I have forgotten nothing." Her voice was quiet but firm. There was something in it that Ho had never heard from her before, something that sounded almost like warmth. "Why are you here?" he asked. Vila was silent for a long moment. She looked at her hands, then at the wall, then finally back at him. "A debt unpaid is a chain unbroken," she said. "Among my people, when someone saves your life, you owe them. Until that debt is repaid, you are bound to them. So you stayed because of a debt." "I stayed because I wanted to." The words hung in the air between them. Ho felt his heart do something strange, a flutter, a skip, something he had not felt in a very long time. Among humans, he said, we do not think of life-saving as a debt, we think of it as a gift, something given freely. Then you are fools. Maybe, but happy fools. Something changed in Vila's eyes. The hardness softened, just for a moment, just enough for Ho to see something vulnerable underneath. I am not good at being happy, she said. My people do not teach us how. Then maybe I can teach you. It was a foolish thing to say. He knew at the moment the words left his mouth, but he did not take them back. Vila looked at him for a long time. Then slowly she reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were cool and smooth, just as he remembered from that night on 7. Perhaps, she said softly, perhaps you can. Outside the medical bay the war continued. Ships flew, soldiers fought, people died. But inside that small room, something new was beginning. Something that neither of them fully understood yet. Something that would change everything. The orders came down from high command 3 weeks after station. Ho was being reassigned. He would serve as the primary human medical liaison aboard the battleship Eternal Blade, commanded by none other than Commander Vila of the Third Fang. When Ho read the orders, he had to read them twice to make sure he was not dreaming. Joint human operations had become more common as the war against the swarm intensified. The two species needed each other. Humans brought creativity and adaptability, brought strength and discipline. Together, they were stronger than either could be alone. But having a human permanently assigned to a ship was rare, very rare. Ho wondered if Vila had anything to do with it. He wondered if he should ask. He decided not to. Life on the Eternal Blade was not easy at first. The crew looked at him with suspicion. A human on their ship, a soft human medic who had no place among warriors. Some ignored him. Others made their dislike clear through cold stares and harsh words. Ho did not let it bother him. He had dealt with worse. He set up his medical station in a small room near the main deck. He organized his supplies. He learned the layout of the ship. He made himself useful in small ways, helping where he could, never complaining when he was treated badly. Slowly things began to change. The first real change came when a young warrior named was injured during a training exercise. A blade had cut deep into his arm, and medical gel was not stopping the bleeding fast enough. Ho stepped in without asking permission. He applied pressure to the wound, used his own supplies to stop the bleeding, and stitched the cut closed with quick, precise movements. Stared at him the entire time. No had ever let a human touch them, but the pain was too great to resist. When it was over, the young warrior looked at his arm. The wound was closed, the bleeding had stopped. He would heal. "You are fast," said. It was not quite a compliment, but it was not an insult either. "I have had practice," Ho replied. Word spread through the ship. The human medic had saved. The human medic was not completely useless. The cold stares became fewer. Some crew members even nodded at him when they passed. Through all of this, Vila watched. She kept her distance during the day, acting as a commander should, professional, distant, proper. But in the evenings, things were different. It started with small things. She would come to his medical station to check on supplies. She would ask questions about human medicine. She would stay longer than necessary, asking about Earth, about human customs, about things that had nothing to do with the war. Ho answered all her questions. He told her about his home in the mountains, about the taste of his grandmother's cooking, about the way rain sounded on a summer night. He told her things he had not spoken of in years. In return, Vila began to share small pieces of herself. She told him about the Third Fang, the warrior clan she came from, about the training that started at age 5, about the first time she killed an enemy and felt nothing. "Among my people," she said one night, "emotion is weakness. We are taught to feel nothing, to want nothing, to need nothing except victory. That sounds lonely, Ho said. Vila was quiet for a moment. I did not know loneliness until I met you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy, meaningful. Neither of them knew what to say next. As the weeks passed, Ho noticed something that puzzled him. Vila never ate with her officers. She always ate with him in his small medical station, sharing rations and conversation. The other noticed too. Whispers began to spread. But the strangest thing was her armor. Vila's armor was old, damaged, covered in scars and burns that told the story of 100 battles. Any other commander would have replaced it long ago, but Vila refused. She repaired it herself again and again, no matter how bad the damage. Once Ho asked her about it. Your armor has seen better days, he said. The coalition would provide you with new equipment, better protection. Something flickered in Vila's eyes. This armor is mine. It has protected me for many years. I will not replace it. But it is damaged. Look at the chest plate. It barely holds together. Vila's hand went to her chest, covering the metal there. For a moment, Ho thought he saw fear in her eyes, an actual emotion, raw and unguarded. The chest plate stays, she said firmly. Always. Ho did not understand, but he did not push. Then came the night that changed everything. The Eternal Blade had just finished a brutal mission against a swarm hive ship. Casualties were light, but Vila had taken a hit. A blade had sliced across her ribs, cutting through the gaps in her armor. She hid the wound from her crew. Commanders did not show weakness. They did not admit injury. They certainly did not ask for help. But Ho found her. He was doing his evening rounds when he saw drops of black blood on the floor. He followed them to the cargo bay, where Vila was sitting alone in the darkness, pressing a cloth against her side. Commander, he said, you are hurt. It is nothing. Show me. I said it is nothing. Ho walked toward her. He knelt down in front of her and gently pulled her hand away from the wound. Blood was soaking through the cloth. The cut was deep. It needed proper care. Let me help, he said quietly. Vila's violet eyes met his. For a moment she seemed ready to refuse, but something in his gaze made her stop. She had seen that look before, on 7. The same stubborn determination that would not take no for an answer. Fine, she said. Ho worked carefully, cleaning the wound and preparing to stitch it closed. To do so, he needed to move her armor aside, the chest plate. I need to remove this, he said. Vila stiffened. No. I cannot treat the wound properly with it in the way. Then do not treat it properly. Vila. It was the first time he had used her name without her title. She looked at him with wide eyes. Trust me, he said. Slowly, hesitantly, Vila reached up and released the clasps on her chest plate. She lifted it away from her body, holding it against her chest like a shield. Ho focused on the wound. He cleaned it. He numbed it. He began to stitch it closed with the same careful movements he had used on 7. Vila watched him, her breathing shallow. When he finished, he reached for a bandage. His hand brushed against the inside of the chest plate that Vila was still holding. He felt grooves in the metal, lines that did not belong there. What is this? He asked. Vila froze. Her entire body went rigid. Her eyes filled with something Ho had never seen from her before. Fear, true, deep fear. Nothing, she said quickly. It is nothing. But Ho had already felt enough to know. Letters, shapes, something had been carved into the inside of her armor. He gently took the chest plate from her hands. She did not resist. She seemed unable to move at all. Ho turned the armor over and looked at the inside, at the metal that had been pressed against Vila's heart for 2 years. Letters were carved there, human letters, a name. Kangtaiho. His name, carved into the armor that protected her heart. Ho's hands began to shake. His throat closed. His eyes burned. He looked up at Vila and he saw tears, silver tears like starlight forming in her violet eyes. "Why?" he whispered. And Vila, the fearless commander who had faced death 1,000 times without flinching, could not answer. Because some truths were too big for words. Even for warriors. The cargo bay was silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Ho held the chest plate in his trembling hands, staring at his own name carved into the metal. Each letter was perfect, careful, made with time and intention. Vila sat before him, her wound forgotten, her eyes shining with silver tears she could not stop. She had spent 2 years hiding this secret, 2 years carrying his name against her heart. Now he knew, and she did not know what came next. "Why?" Ho asked again, his voice cracked on the word. "Why would you do this?" Vila's hands closed into fists. She looked away from him, unable to meet his eyes. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Among my people, there is an ancient tradition. We call it the etching of the eternal." She paused. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. Ho waited. "When a warrior owes their life to another," Vila continued, "they carve that name into the armor above their heart. It is the highest honor we can give. It means that the name has become part of us, that we carry it with us always, that we protect it as we protect ourselves." Ho listened. He did not interrupt. "The etching is not given lightly. Among my people, it is reserved only for bondmates, for blood family, for those who have touched our soul in a way that cannot be undone." Vila finally looked at him. Her violet eyes were raw with emotion she could not hide. "I carved your name the night after you saved me on 7. The weight of her words pressed down on Ho's chest. He struggled to breathe. "But there is more," Vila said. "The etching is also a vow, a promise that the carved name will be the last thing we protect, that in battle if we fall, we will fall shielding that name." Her voice grew thick. "That our life from that moment on belongs to the one who saved it." Ho thought of her armor, the burns, the cuts, the dents. Every mark was a wound she had taken. Every scar was a battle she had fought. "The marks on your armor," he said slowly, "all of them. All of them were wounds I took so that your name would remain untouched," Vila said. "Every scar on this armor is a scar that did not touch your name. I made sure of that. Every time." Ho could not speak. His throat had closed completely. His eyes burned with tears he did not try to stop. "I have carried you into every battle since that night," Vila whispered. "Every fight, every mission, every moment of danger. You were there against my heart, and I would have died 1,000 times before I let anything harm your name." She stood up suddenly, turning away from him. Her shoulders were shaking. She wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to hold herself together. "You gave me life, Ho. You gave me life when I should have died alone in the dirt. And I have spent 2 years trying to be worthy of that gift, trying to be worthy of carrying your name." Ho rose to his feet. His legs felt weak. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might break through his chest. "Among my people," Vila said, her back still turned, "to etch a name is to say what we cannot speak aloud. It is how we express feelings that we have no words for, feelings that are considered weakness." She finally turned to face him. Tears were streaming down her silver cheeks, leaving trails that glittered in the dim light. "I do not know the human word for what I feel," she said. "I was never taught such words. They do not exist in my language, but I know that it is strong, stronger than anything I have ever felt. It keeps me awake at night. It makes me afraid in ways that battle never could. It makes me want things I was taught never to want." She looked at him with eyes full of fear and hope, and something vast and unnamed. "I think you know the word," she whispered. "I think you have always known it, but I am afraid to ask you to say it." Ho stepped toward her. His tears were falling freely now, and he did not care. He reached out and took her hands in his. They were cold and trembling. "On Earth," he said, his voice shaking, "we have many words for what you are describing: attachment, devotion, affection. He squeezed her hands gently. But the strongest word, the one that means all of those things and more, is love. Vila's breath caught. She repeated the word softly like she was tasting it. Love. It means caring about someone more than yourself. It means wanting to protect them, to be near them, to share your life with them. It means that when you think about living without them, something inside you breaks. A sob escaped Vila's throat. Yes, that is it. That is exactly it. Ho lifted one hand and gently touched her face, wiping away her tears with his thumb. Her skin was smooth and cool under his fingers, just as he remembered from that night 2 years ago. You carved my name into your armor because you love me, he said. It was not a question. Vila nodded, unable to speak. And you have been fighting for 2 years, taking wounds and facing death, to protect something that represents me. Another nod. Why did you never tell me? Vila's voice was small. Because I was afraid. Among my people such feelings are weakness. If my commanders knew, if my family knew, I would be shamed, cast out. My honor would be destroyed. And you think I would shame you? I did not know what you felt. What if you were disgusted? What if you looked at me with pity, or worse, with nothing at all? She shook her head. I could not bear that, so I kept silent. I carried you in secret and told myself it was enough. Was it enough? No, the word came out as a broken whisper. It was never enough. Every day I wanted more. Every day I wanted to tell you, but I was a coward. Ho pulled her closer. She did not resist. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her against his chest, feeling her heart beat against his own. You are many things, Vila of the Third Fang, he said softly. But you are not a coward. A coward does not carve someone's name into their armor and carry it into battle. A coward does not protect a name for 2 years without asking for anything in return. He felt her arms slowly wrap around him, hesitant at first, then. I do not know how to do this, she said against his shoulder. I do not know how to love properly. I was not taught. Neither was I, not really, but we can learn together. She pulled back just enough to look at his face. Her eyes searched his, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that he did not mean what he said. She found none. You would do that, she asked. You would teach me, even though I am not human, even though I do not understand your customs or your feelings or your strange, soft ways. Ho smiled. It was the first real smile he had given anyone in years. You saved my life on station. You carried me in your arms. You stood guard over me for 6 hours while I slept. You have been carrying my name against your heart for 2 years. He rested his forehead against hers. I think you understand more than you know. Vila closed her eyes. A shudder ran through her body as something inside her finally broke free. Something she had been holding back for so long. I was so afraid, she whispered. So afraid that you would hate me. I could never hate you. I was afraid you would leave. I am not going anywhere. She opened her eyes. They were still wet with tears, but something had changed in them. The fear was fading. In its place was something new, something bright. Among humans, Ho said, when we love someone, we say the words out loud. We do not hide them. We do not carve them in secret places. We speak them even when it is hard, even when we are afraid. Vila took a shaky breath. Then teach me. Ho smiled again. I love you, Vila. I think I have loved you since that night on 7, even though I did not know your name, even though I thought I would never see you again. Vila's hands tightened on his arms. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. The word caught in her throat. She shook her head, frustrated with herself. It is okay, Ho said. You do not have to say it now, you can. I love you. The words came out rough and broken, like they had been dragged from somewhere deep inside her. But they were real. They were true. I love you, Ho. I love you more than honor, more than duty, more than life itself. And for the first time in her entire existence, Vila of the Third Fang smiled. Not the cold smile of victory, not the sharp smile of battle. A real smile, soft and warm and full of something that her people did not have a word for. But humans did. And now so did she.